All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. This is the Node Foundation TSC meeting for August 11th, 2016. I'm filling in for Rod today as he wasn't able to make it. For the last meeting, we had a couple of discussions. We talked about in the postmortem working group some things with what we're going to do, some repositories there, possibly moving them around under the Node Foundation. We had some discussion of what we're going to be doing about RC moderation. I believe that is still in discussion on GitHub at this point, so there's no real updates there. We made some more work on defining Node.js core. Michael Dawson's been working on the pull request for that. And then regular roll-up reporting for active working groups. So let's go ahead and do a stand-up. I'll go first. I was at Cascadia all last week, so I've mostly just kind of been out and also just been having some discussions with people. I don't really have anything to mention here.
Okay. Who's next?
Michael, you want to go next?
Sure. So I started to create the repo for Node Report that we discussed last week. Did create the default governance as we discussed. So if you guys want to take a look and just make sure that you like what I did, that would be great. I see in Dutton he sort of gave it a +1, so that might be what he uses as the pattern there as well. So again, taking a look beforehand probably is good. I think that's the main TSC related thing that I did last week.
All right, and James, if you want to go next.
Yeah, so most of my attention over the past week has been more on technical items. A couple of Node EPSs, pull requests, that kind of thing. But I've also been looking at some of the inclusivity, diversity issues, and just kind of getting my head more around the concerns there. So that's me. I'm not sure who's next.
Colin, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm just right now, as we speak, in the process of trying to do the v.4 release. There's not really a list.
Okay, thanks. And Jeremiah?
Nothing of note at the TSC level.
Okay, moving on to the foundation members. Tracy, if you have anything to add.
Oh, nope, not right now.
All right, and Michael, anything from you?
Let's see here. I mean, I'm doing a ton of stuff. Oh man, it's too much to even try to figure out what to say right now. But one thing that I'd just like everybody to take note of is that for the Code and Learn and for the Collab Summit stuff, I'd really like somebody who's going to be there from the technical side to take on a little bit of a leadership role there and make sure that it all kind of comes together and that the agenda gets fixed. Because unlike the last one, I don't think that I'll be able to personally do that much like on the day. So if you're interested in kind of taking that on, please reach out to me soon.
Great. So you're talking about the Collab Summit in Amsterdam?
Yes. So the Code and Learn and the Collab Summit. So the Code and Learn is more like a, hey everybody, let's learn how to write code on core in like 4 hours. That somebody needs to lead that, and yeah, the Collab Summit stuff, we could probably use multiple leaders on the Collab Summit stuff since we're talking about so many different issues. We could have people take each session. But yeah, the immediate need is for Amsterdam. We'll probably need the same when Austin comes up, but that's a ways out.
Hey Michael, this is Josh. Let me know what I can do, because if that will if they'll give me some roles to play at the conference in Amsterdam, it might be easier for me to get there that way.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, great.
I'm planning to be at the Collaboration Summit, so if you need some people, need some help in terms of specific sessions, let me know and we'll see what fits.
Yeah, ditto.
Great, thank you guys.
All right, and observers, Anna, anything to mention?
I don't think so. Sorry.
Okay. William?
I also have been traveling a lot, but did do that the README merge for the Summit repo with info about the CLAB Summit. And also did my little part on number 126 for the election of the chair and directors.
I think that leaves me. I don't really have anything to update.
All right, thanks everyone. At this point, we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda. The first one we have is postmortem issue number 30, which is repositories to contribute collaboratively. So there's a couple of repositories here that are currently not under the Node.js org. I'm not very familiar with this, but examples are like MDB, V8, and LL Node, and we're looking at moving them into the org. And maybe should we not? So
we actually already discussed that last week and agreed to do it. So I don't know if it needs to be on the TSC agenda anymore. Matter of actually doing it.
All right. Any thoughts from anyone else? Can we go and take this off the agenda?
I just took it off the tag, so it doesn't sound like it. Can we get like a really short update on that then? Have you made significant progress there?
So I've created the node report repo. I have a pull request against it. So I created it with just, the basic README. I have a pull request against it with the base governance. That's where I was just mentioning if, I CC'd the TSC and the postmortem working group for comments on that governance. Once I have one LGTM, once I have a few more, I'll go ahead and land that, at which point we'll start contributing the code that actually goes in there. I haven't talked to Ndutni yet about moving over LL Node. I will follow up with him on that. There hasn't been progress when I get back on vacation a week, like I'm away next week, but the week after. I think once we get I was looking at getting the node report one landed, that would give us the base governance, which we're asking Ndutni to put into the LL node with a pull request before we actually move it over.
And also the GitHub bot, just after the previous meeting, Philip had brought it into the org. He didn't know that we had that conversation. So it's still missing its docs, but I promised to do a PR and get those in there.
Sounds good.
Actually, I'm going to add a note on the GitHub bot. There's a discussion somewhere. I think it ended up on the help repo for some reason. The GitHub bot might need to move back out because we need Travis access for it, and people don't want me to give Travis temporary access again so that we can set that up. But that's probably for a different time, but that's like an ongoing org issue that we're going to end up having. The mess.
All right, thanks. Are there any other comments before we move on to the next issue? All right, so next up is TSC issue number 126, the TSC board director elections. Michael, do you want to go over this since you've been kind of leading this so far?
Yeah, I didn't actually, when I first launched it, I didn't expect that we would need it, but thanks, William, for figuring that out. Yeah, we need to have another TSC election for the chair to do another year-long term. I mean, that's essentially what we need to do.
I mean, I think the way that it's written, we don't have to. I mean, we could elect to have Rod continue.
But in order to do that, we would have to have an election or we would have to have a full vote to say to keep Rod in rather than just having a full vote of who the TSC chair would be. And then, if Rod wants to continue to be it, then Rod would put his name down, right?
Okay.
That seems like the easiest thing to do. And we can, there's like a really simple condorsement voting thing that we can use so that people's votes are anonymous and all that, and we just plug everybody's email address into it.
And also,
So, yeah.
are we going to keep the two positions? Because there's actually the chair and then there's the director position. Are we going to keep them separate?
I mean, I'd like to get Rod's input on that. I don't know if, I mean, he's in the role. I don't know if it's more work for him to basically be communicating with another person to do all of this, or if it would actually be easier to split it up and take some load off his plate. I think that I'd like to know how Rod feels about that, being that he's been the only person to sit in the chair.
Makes sense.
I just want to throw one other thing in there, and that's, I don't think we have an official like CTC chair, and I've always just kind of thought that was just the way we wanted it to be. But then since we have an official TSC chair, do we need such a thing for CTC? And it seems like it's kind of Rod now, and just want to throw that out there.
I mean, I would like to see a CTC chair just so that we can start distributing the load more. I mean, I know that Rich has run some of the meetings recently, and it would be like awesome if he wanted to take that on, because he has the right, like he's really on top of stuff, and he runs the meetings really well. So I you know, separate from this other kind of bylaw thing and putting a TSC chair up, I would actually like to see that be a different person, and distribute more of the load.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea as well, just because, you know, a lot of us are strapped to anything we can do to distribute it. Is this something that should be filed as an issue on the CTC repo to kind of get that ball moving?
Yeah. I mean, we need to solicit nominations and everything, but being that does anybody know when Rod is back?
I think he was planning on being back on our next TSC call. He should be on the CTC call from next week, as far as I'm aware.
Okay,
But, I mean,
that's my understanding.
we need to make sure we need to have a clear separation, though, between, if we're going to have a discussion about whether the CTC needs to have a chair, that's CTC Repo, completely different discussion than
right.
TSC Chair and discussion. So we're doing
Well,
two separate
to
issues,
some
two
degree,
separate
like,
nominations.
it'd be helpful to have an understanding of how much he's needed to do as a chair per se, and that would give us a good idea of what sort of responsibilities the CTC chair might have, or if we should really have one.
So how about this? Because I'd like to have this resolved by the next board meeting, so that if we elect somebody different, then they're in that meeting. And we would probably just have Rod come on as well, just to transfer off of any work off of him. But anyway, we should target soliciting nominations by the next TSC meeting. So if anybody else wants to run, we should, you know, be doing it by end of next week, essentially, so that we can elect by the meeting after. And then that'll give Rod time to come back and to have any input on whether or not, like, it seems like a good idea to split the board chair and the TSC chair apart. And so let's answer that question first, and then after we've answered that question and done that election, we can talk about the CTC stuff.
I'm wondering, though, don't we need to figure out if there's going to be one or two people before you submit, you know, ask people if they want to run? Because, you know, people may not want to displace Rod, but if there's two positions, then they might want to be involved, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a really important question to answer first before we can really solicit nominations. But kind of like Michael was saying earlier, Rogers was saying earlier, I really want to solicit Rod's feedback on this, because yeah, it might be that overhead communication might be so great that it makes it more difficult. And I mean, without knowing any answer to that, I don't at least feel like we can really come to an answer on that right now.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we create a new GitHub issue that is just specific to should we split this role and have two representatives elected, and then seek to resolve that entirely by the next meeting. So hopefully we have like a good online discussion, and then we can just resolve it in the meeting. And then after the next TSC meeting, online, we can solicit nominations, and then we can have the election prior to the TSC meeting before that. So we're not trying to get nominations before next Thursday, but we are trying to resolve this other question by then.
When is the board meeting?
The 28th.
Keep in mind, there's not a TSC meeting next week.
Yeah.
We should have it.
That's kind of short notice, but okay. I guess.
We can file an issue.
I mean,
this meeting's done. To...
if we have one, we should dedicate it specifically to this issue, not just have like a regular, you know, any agenda item type of discussion.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and take to do right after this call. I'll open the issue into the CSC Repo, specifically focusing on whether we're going to keep things together, keep the positions together, or separate them out.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to want to do the nominations, the self-nominations? I mean, is it self-nomination? Are we nominating someone else? Do we do that through the repo?
We should just do it through the repo, yeah.
Okay. As a separate issue per nomination, or one issue where people speak up as comments?
I think it was just
Do
like
one
one issue or email thread last year.
Yeah, let's just do one issue because that makes it easier to kind of track.
Okay.
William, by chance, do you happen to know if the bylaws state anything about how that process is supposed to work?
No.
Yeah, not on the nomination side, no.
It's pretty vague. I think the only thing that there has been, so whenever we're electing somebody to the board or having something related to representation on the board, we need to be particular about using majority wins voting systems because there's apparently some weird stuff in Delaware law that may not recognize other types of voting. So that's the only thing that we really have to worry about on the voting side.
Yeah, the charter lays out you have to use one of two different types of voting. I remember one is single transferable vote. The other is forgetting right now.
It's endorsed it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right. Do we? Were you kind of on consensus on this? Going to open up issues. Any other final comments before we move on to the next issue? All right, so next up is the TSC issue, well, currently 113. This is the defining Node.js core. Michael, you want to give any updates on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's been any more discussion since the last time we met.
Has anyone had any further thoughts on the subject, or do we want to just kind of skip on to the next one?
Is this something like, if there hasn't been anything more to discuss on it, can we like merge this and go with it and adjust as needed, or what's the story? I haven't really paid attention to it, but to be honest, I thought it was pretty solid. I'm not sure.
I think Rod would have some input on where his mind is with this.
Okay.
I mean, does Rod have any open objections in the PR?
I don't think it's the question comes down to the specific PR itself. It's the sort of bigger question of does that solve the problem we were trying to answer? So it's not, I don't think whether, yeah, I haven't seen any, I addressed all the comments that were in the PR in terms of, changes. I think it's like, is that what we want? And if the answer is yes, we could just land it, or if it's we need something different, then maybe not, right?
I mean, I feel like at this point we've been kicking this back and forth so much that the prudent thing to do may be to merge it, and if people have particular issues to take with language here or there, or don't think that it solves this or that problem, they can send a new PR and we can evaluate it as improvement. But I just don't want to see things indefinitely stalled out until people, you know, reconsider them. I think having something is better than nothing, which is what we have.
Yeah, I'm happy to land if people think that's the right thing to do.
I asked Rod to comment on the issue if he has any thoughts on it, so I don't know. Otherwise, we can move forward with, I guess, if there's no objections from anyone else.
Well, actually, I'm not sure I can land it, to be honest, but somebody else will have to do that.
I personally didn't feel that there was a consensus on everything that was there, and that it wasn't ready to go, but you guys can tell me different.
I remember last time I looked at it, you know, looking purely at the PR, not at the more meta conversation, you know, I thought it looked pretty good. Maybe we can do some things where if we decide to move forward with this, we can get a couple other people to, yeah, add a couple of looks good to me's on it. So it's not just me. I am to blame, I guess. But yeah, I do also favor kind of what Mike was saying, Mike Rogers was saying, to kind of get something landed. You know, we can always change things later. This isn't necessarily set in stone.
Well, so I kind of thought that the intent was to kind of present this to the board as the answer of what they asked of what is Node Core. And I feel if we merge it, then it makes it, you know, like presented to the public like we have decided this is official, and the board hasn't actually, maybe they have a disagreement and they'll say they don't like it.
I don't know. I think there was some thoughts and maybe like the last meeting on getting it merged, so at least we know what we're like, just purely for us to know what, okay, we're about this, and then we can move forward with certain things on our end. Like, do we even really need the TSC separate from the CTC, etc. Without not even like concerning the board question. It's also kind of for us, so.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the board question is going to be, there's a larger document, which is like, you know, the basically the mission statement of the foundation and some of the strategy stuff about the foundation, and that will work on top of this core definition. And if they take issue with it, then they can kick that down and we can make modifications. But I don't think that we need to hold it up on waiting for board input. If they have it, we'll definitely hear it later on. But I think also, like, using this in the context of drafting that other document is going to flush out some stuff with it, and we can make, you know, further iterations on it from there.
All right, so does that feel kind of like we discussed as much as we can here? Anything else we want to discuss on this topic? All right, so our last issue is the regular roll-up reporting for active working groups, issue number 109. I know that Rod had been primarily working on this, so we'll probably have to defer more discussion of that, but has anyone else been working on this? Any other comments?
Nothing from me.
All right, so I think that finishes up the agenda portion of the meeting. Jeremiah, have we had anyone watching on the live stream?
There are a couple of people. If anyone has questions for the TSC, you could ask those now, either in Node Dev on IRC or in the YouTube chat, and we will do our best to answer them. We'll wait for a couple minutes.
I wanted to bubble up some information. I tuned into the build working group meeting, and they decided they wanted to try and allocate some funds for some hosting of some sort. And they were a bit trying to figure out how to do that, who to contact, the TSC, the CTC, the board, and I think it left off with emailing someone on the board.
Yeah, Johan emailed Michael to ask how to move that forward.
I just thought it was
this
an interesting scenario because someone for the first time is like trying to figure out this path, and I think others can learn from it.
Is this about the OSX machines, or is this something else?
No, this is for the OSX machines where, you know, to be able to test on the different versions we support. It's, you know, we've looked in lots of different places. We've spent quite a lot of time seeing if we could get contributions that would cover that off.
Right. Yeah, I followed that a bit.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of we've decided in the build group that we really just should go forward with trying, you know, paying for the hosting. There's a company that can actually give you the different versions, which is one of the challenges, and, you know, relatively modest cost.
So generally, this kind of stuff does need to come through the TSC rep to the board. So the thing to do normally would be to hand it off to the TSC and have the TSC make it. However, I mean, Rod being on the build group, you know, already voiced when we were doing the budgeting last time that we may need money for these OSX machines, and we had allocated some money to the side. It was sort of a guess of how much money, so I don't know how much it was offhand. But if you could figure out like exactly how much you need, I can tell you pretty quickly if we've already allocated that or not. But there is some money there.
I think Johan included that in the email to you, and let me just find it because I was CC'd on it.
Okay. I'm behind on email, so that's not that surprising.
Yeah, it was in the range of like $800, I think, is what.
$800 a month, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It says it would set us back $800 a month. Yep.
So that's okay. That's definitely within our 6-month budget, I think, because if I remember correctly off the top of my head, it was $10,000 a year. So within the 6-month budget, there would be $5,000 there, and then we're already a month into it, so that's going to be fine. It's just that when we do 2017 budgeting, I'll need to make sure that I increase it a little bit. So.
Oh.
That's good news. I guess the question is, how do we actually place an order and get people paid and stuff like that? But.
I mean, like, Rob's done this with a couple services already, so he knows the whole process if he's involved. But it's essentially like you send it to, I think it's accounts receivable, I think it's AR. But you, like, if it's an ongoing thing, we'll want to essentially have them like put in their credit card stuff for it. So we'll need to just send them access. So.
Right. Okay.
But we've done this with another service already. I just can't recall what it was. But yeah, Rod had this set up before. So.
Yeah, I think in this case it's probably good to get Johan sort of looped in so he can close the loop, and then that way there's a couple people who know how to do it.
Okay. Well, before we go off to the private section, there is someone who has a question. Now, I'm not sure if this is the best question for the TSC, but I will answer it quickly anyways. They say, what sort of speed improvements will Chakra Core bring? Unfortunately, I don't think there's a good way to answer that. The benchmarking for Node.js is not in the greatest state anyways, and there's not a huge amount of people super interested in that, so it hasn't moved forward that much. So already marking our own speed to compare is a little bit difficult. Michael Dalton's done
whoever wrote that, you can write to me that we have some stuff internally if you're curious about the performance comparisons, or I can put you in touch with someone who has them too.
Right, and that's Josh Gavant.
Yes, and my email address is just josh.gavant@Microsoft, and hopefully nothing can scrape this call.
Okay, I think we're probably done then. Thanks everyone, and do we have a list of upcoming meetings? No, I don't think so. Next meeting should be on the 25th of this month, although we may do a special meeting next week, Thursday, depending on where we go forward with things. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.